And so we ended up like actually losing about probably 30% of our clients when COVID hit. We've got to pivot. And so we changed our offering to 3 strict things. It became SEO, paid ads, and web design. We were all over the board when we started. We were doing everything.
Welcome, Dan. Thanks so much for joining me, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Dalton. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I mean, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I've been following Scroll, but and I know you got a couple things going on. But why don't you tell us, start with just what you have going on and tell us about Scroll, all that good stuff.
For sure. Yeah. So my name is Dan Page. I'm the COO and a co-founder at Scroll. It's a digital marketing agency. And we got started about 4-ish years ago. I started the business with Shane Hickenlooper, who's the current CEO. And we had both come from a digital marketing background, either myself coming from kind of a content background, social media background, influencer marketing background, and Shane coming from definitely a digital marketing background and a sales background as well. And we were both miffed, so to speak, with either former employers or just clients in general, and really the agency world in general, because we've worked for agencies, we've worked for corporate, we've worked for, we've done freelance as well, and consulting. We've kind of hit the full gamut. I think that most people do when you're in digital marketing. And we were just like, we wanted to create something better than what we were used to and then what existed currently. And so we started Scroll with that in mind, and that it actually started as we called ourselves Uinta Local, and it was like with the Uinta Mountains here in Utah, and we wanted to really serve like the underserved community in Utah. In digital marketing, I think in the agency world, there's this I guess there's this thought, so to speak, to only serve and go after the big retainers and the big clients, the big brand names. That's kind of what, if you go to school, that's what they talk about in school, serving these big brands. They talk about the big brand stories. And we wanted to serve the underserved, which is the small business. Because that's really the people that, we felt, first of all, we could make almost an instant impact with. And it's where, myself had experience and Shane had experience. Shane used to work for KSL in Utah, and we used to work for Deseret Digital Media, which is kind of the main media selling arm of KSL. And so he would sell to small businesses every day, all day long. And so that's the chosen channel that we decided to serve our audience. And I think it's gone really well so far.
That's cool. I have a lot to, we could dive into that whole topic of like marketing and small businesses, but I'd love to, even before that, what got you into starting your business? Like what was the catapult that really helped you realize like you were done working for agencies, that it was time to work on your own?
Yeah, for sure. So there was 2 things. One, just really fed up with some former bosses that I had, just extremely controlling, micromanaging. I had always had side businesses, like even from a very young kid, I was always interested in entrepreneurship. I started a recycling business when I was like 8, 9 years old to help pay for this trip. I had, just doing like all these little things. And that recycling business actually in Kaysville City, I ran that for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years until Kaysville City came out with their own city recycling program. I was making like close to a couple $1,000s a month just in my city, which is crazy, especially for a kid that was like, 10 years old.
Obviously, and you were just, was it like door to door? Like, hey, if you have recycling, leave it outside and I'll come pick it up for whatever, how much money?
I had custom bins made, and I did paper, glass, and metal. And we had bins that we would, drop off. They're basically just heavy duty cardboard boxes with like my name on them, basically. And then I would go back with my parents, and we'd just get in the car. My mom had a van. We'd, do our route and go pick everything up super early before school or after school. And that worked really well. So entrepreneurship's always been a part of me, and I've always had little things. I started a photography business about 7-8 years ago. I still run that as well with my wife. So it's always been a part of me. And my last full-time job that I had, I was just like basically fed up with the control of my schedule, fed up with the commute. I was commuting from Kaysville all the way down to like South Salt Lake. And I was just like, I need to do something. I need to start something that will sustain, first of all, myself and my family, because I was newly married at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up meeting Shane, and we went to a lunch. He had, left KSL, got an office space, was looking for somebody to help pay rent on the space and pay for the lease. And I said, hey, I'm looking at moving out of my home. Let's, I'm on my home office and trying to get something separate. Let's chat. And we did. And that lunch turned into a 5-hour lunch. And then that turned into a business. And we just kept, going back and forth. And it was all about like, we can create something different than what was out there, because everything was being underserved. At least the small business in this area that I had experience with, just people would be, basically taking money and not delivering on service, or over promising and under delivering, which is so common in the agency world. And we were just kind of miffed with everything that was going on. And we're like, there's definitely money to be made. There's a huge audience in the United States and Utah for this. So we may as well try to combine our unique kind of offering between the two of us. And Shane started out kind of being the web SEO guy. I started being the social guy, and our business has definitely kind of transformed since then. We offer very specific things now, but it was, that's really what channeled us into what Scroll kind of became.
Dude, that's cool. So you mentioned something right at the end there that I think is interesting. And I was just talking to about this with a group of my friends last night about how businesses evolve from like phases, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning, you did a couple things and it transformed in offering very specific things. So tell me like what you offered at the beginning, what you offer now. But what I'm mostly interested in is how you decided to change what you offered.
Make that transition. Yeah, for sure. So my background was influencer marketing and social media marketing. That's okay. I actually teamed up with a professor of mine I went to LDSBC for a couple semesters, and teamed up with. Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. That really actually going there, I owe a lot to that school, because it really transformed, I think, my path and got me introduced to a lot of people, and also got my feet wet in digital marketing. Unlike a lot of schools that don't have like active clients that you would manage, LDSBC puts you in that your first semester, where maybe attending another school here locally that has a similar program, you wouldn't be into that until maybe your last semester. So it really got my feet wet. Started a consulting business with that professor for about 2 years, and then when we started Scroll. When Shane and I started Scroll, I had a couple clients still from that. My professor went off to get finalize a PhD. And so I, kind of joined up with Shane, and I brought over my clients. He already had some clients. And so we kind of brought that together. So I was doing social media marketing, content creation, just posting, the total grind of that. And
of the social media world.
Yes, no kidding. And just managing influencers too. We had a couple influencers on our roster. And so managing them, any of the bookings they were trying to make, managing their clients that they were handling. So that was kind of what I did. Shane, on the other hand, was building websites. And so he was doing websites for clients. He was helping run SEO for them. So, optimizing their website, posting blogs, stuff like that. And that's what it initially started as. Is like, okay, we're going to do web and social. And that's initially what it started off as. And we learned pretty quickly that, first of all, social is incredibly hard to scale because you need a lot of people. You just need a lot of there's a lot of facets that go into content creation. There's a lot of money that you need to be able to produce content, at least on a regular basis, right? And if you're not doing it in-house, you have to outsource to an editor, and that's even more expensive. So, So we were just we figured this is not scalable. And at the same time, it was kind of at the point of that economic downturn. Right around COVID time. And so we ended up actually losing about probably 30% of our clients when COVID hit. And so we were just what do we do? We've got to pivot. And so we, Shane and I kind of hunkered down and we were we got to figure this out. We changed our offering to 3 strict things. It became SEO, paid ads, and web design. We started offering paid ads in 2020.
Are you talking about social media or programmatic
Yeah. So, and what I mean by paid ads is we really specifically do social, so paid social, and we do Google. So search. So those are the 2 that we specialize in now. We were all over the board when we started. We were doing everything, with paid ads, but now we've kind of settled in on those. But so anyways, we made that pivot and we started working with home service businesses. And this was at the time when home service businesses were exploding. They couldn't get enough work. Everybody was home. So everybody was fixing up their house or dealing with home issues. So it was the perfect, we were this is a great niche. We can figure this niche out. And at the time too, we had one employee, Preston, who's actually Shane's brother-in-law, and we had hired him as kind of our sales guy, and he was our first employee. And then we went from Preston, myself, and Shane, and we were all doing the selling and some of the fulfillment. We're outsourcing some of the fulfillment at that point. And we just were we can scale this because this is a niche that needs help and is very active, at least during the recession, at that time. And so we were just let's just hit the ground running. And we just were selling super hard. We got into advertising for ourselves. At that point, we had done everything off of word of mouth and our own SEO, and we were doing a really good job. And then it came kind of time to pivot and transition to Scroll, because you went to local all the way up until 2020. And
that's right. Yeah, your name changed. Yeah, that's right.
Our name changed, and then we went national. We were we were just focusing on Utah, and it's such a small market really in comparison to the United States, right? And so we were and even internationally, and we were we wanted to serve this small thing. We wanted to do the Utah guys, and we were just to grow, we needed to change the name, we needed to rebrand, we needed to broaden our scope of our area and our businesses that we were serving. And that's what happened in 2020. And that happened with, we had a partner that we brought on, Mason Bledsoe, and he brought us the name. We used that name, and we've kind of taken it from there in terms of growth. But that was the turning point, was that kind of time when we needed to pivot in 2020, and it was definitely worth it, because we went from myself, Shane, Preston, to by the end of 2020, we were a 10-person team and almost 15 person. We've kind of scaled back just slightly since then in headcount, but yeah, we went from 3 of us to about a team of about 15 by the end of 2020. So it went pretty quick that year, and the growth kind of followed. So
yeah, holy cow, that's gnarly, man. So when you talk about Scroll, one of the things that that you guys advertise as like all people, no agency. And so you mentioned earlier that the agency piece was like, it's just kind of like diluted now as far as like all the agencies out there, most of the agencies out there, overpromising, under delivering. I think a big part of that has to be social, right? Because I'm kind of in that space where it's like podcasting, content creation, but I specifically focus on like podcasting. Like, I have a little production business that I do where I help businesses create their own podcast. And we run into that conversation all the time. But the difference is I'm super transparent. Like I always tell clients, like, podcasting is goodwill content. It's like a Costco rotisserie chicken. Like you might make some money off of it, but that's not the point, right? Like, because people are always like, you know what I mean? People are always like, well, what's the ROI? And I'm like, well, I just told you that there probably is none until unless we use it the right way, like for lead gen, brand awareness. But anyway, it's just wild. So when you talk about, all people, no agency, like what message do you try to send to people? How do you try to manage those expectations for small businesses? Because that's a big deal for small businesses.
Totally.
Investing in 100%. A marketing agency, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's typically one of the biggest expenses beyond people for those service-based businesses, at least, because some of them have large teams, some of them are one-man shops, So, but All People No Agency actually came about. And I got to give credit to Levi Lindsay, and you may or may not know who that is. But
I actually interviewed him on my podcast. His interview's coming out soon.
Oh, awesome! We love Levi. He's a good buddy of both Shane and I's. He actually he was going to join our company, and that's another story for another time. But during that transition, actually, we were brainstorming. Shane, myself, Levi, and Mason, when Mason was with us at the time. And Levi came up with that. And that was a tagline that Levi came up with. I don't know if it was that exact variation or not, but he came up with a very similar variation. And then we took it and we used it because we loved it so much. And that was one little parting gift that he gave to us. And we love it. And it's become our motto and our tagline. And what it really means is we've always tried in our branding, in our voice, in our experience, tried to be wildly different than any other agency experience that people have. And it's all been about our people and taking care of our people so that our people can take care of our clients. And that's why that tagline is All People, No Agency. And it's to kind of reject the normal agency model of, serving big clients, right? You serve big clients for a couple years. Maybe you have a contract for, 6 years. It's a couple $1 million contract. They cancel, you have to fire half your staff. And anyone that's worked in the agency world has probably been let go or laid off at least once in their career. And that's just how it goes. Especially if you work for the big agencies. And we were like, we don't ever want to do that. Like, we want to serve lots of small clients, keep our margins really good, and never have to let anybody go, even if our biggest client leaves. And so that was kind of like what Shane and I set out to do. And we felt that if we take care of our people, it's going to reflect in the client experience, and it'll reflect obviously in profits and growth. Yeah. And I believe we've achieved that for sure.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you're the 4-day work week guy.
Yes, we do. Well, I would consider Shane the 4-day work week guy. Okay. But we both have posts that I think have gotten literally millions of impressions when we talk about a 4-day work week on LinkedIn. It's crazy. We always get a ton of people applying and stuff. But yes, we do have a 4-day work week.
It's funny because like there are some. So when this whole thing, COVID hits and there's this big debate on like remote work or work from home or like hybrid and all this stuff. And I'm so personally, like I am pretty like in the middle with things. Like there are some professions, like, cause I'm from the Midwest. So I know that like there are some businesses that can't do remote work. Yeah. Like if you're in a factory, That's not,
no way.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. So like, does remote work, like there's some diehard remote work fans and there's some diehard these.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's in the middle. And same thing with 4-day work week. I think for like, if you're in like sales and marketing, accounting, all these places, like, dude, get it done. And
for sure,
I don't care what you do after that.
Yeah. I think 4-day work week works really well in tech. Obviously, more so than any other industry. Yeah. And 4-day work week was one of Mason's ideas too. Now I'm sounding like we're just taking other people's ideas, which is funny.
but listen, my phrase for that is
we're a good curator of ideas.
That curator, but my I learned this phrase a long time ago. But it was if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. But if you steal from 10 people, it's research.
I love that.
You're just doing
That's
research,
awesome.
bro.
I love that. No. So Mason's no longer a partner here. Yeah. But the 4-day work week was Mason's idea, and it was a great idea, and we all agreed. I think it was awesome. We started doing it beginning of 2021 ish. Yeah. So we're roughly about a year into, like a little over a year actually, of like actually doing the 4-day work week, and it's been fantastic. But yeah, I do think it works really well in tech. I think there is major upside for companies that can do it. It took several months for us to kind of get the hang of it and to not be overworking during that Monday through Thursday. And we honestly realized, like, we just kind of just implemented it and kind of see what happened. And there's a lot of companies that will like research and try to test it out and all this stuff. We're just like, let's just do it and then fix all the problems that are going to happen from it later. Or while we're continuing to do it. And we implemented it, and then we went straight into fixing processes, managing communication with clients and expectations and all that stuff to really like make it work,
Yeah, I like that. Well, let's talk more about that, because I had a question that just about your agency, right? And part of what you do also is like, white label services. So you can do this thing. So my question comes from kind of a little bit of both, right? Like when you were looking at, when you work specifically with small businesses, it sounds like you took content creation out of the mix.
Yes, we did.
Was that, and you mentioned it was hard to scale, but I'm also wondering if it was also just hard to implement and like get people on board with content creation. Because I've seen a lot of media agencies offer it and then not offer it anymore. And I'm just curious to why you would. I mean, like, I don't think this is not like an indictment of what you're doing.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I felt like when we did do it, it was definitely a success. Like, it wasn't like clients weren't getting on board with it, because we weren't onboarding anybody for content creation that didn't want it. We just felt like for the time and money and cost of it, it just didn't make sense. I think we're going to be reinvesting into it this year. Just on my personal brand, on Shane's personal brand, on our company brand, we're going to be investing in it this year. We're starting a YouTube channel. We've been considering starting a podcast for a very long time. And so like it's now coming to fruition. When we started, it just didn't make sense. It wasn't just with the people that we had, it wasn't scalable. I feel like now we could probably do it. And we are, starting to put plans in place to make it kind of be an internal thing, not really offering we offer to clients beyond what we do on the kind of paid social side of things. But other than that, I think most companies get into it with high hopes, and they're usually creators. Like, I'm a creator. Like, you can see these photos hanging up on the wall. Like, I'm a photographer and was a videographer. We have many people on our staff that have that creative background. And so it was an easy thing. Like, hey, we can offer content creation to clients, but what you don't realize is obviously the time, the money, the travel, the really low margin, at least in terms of your time to making money ratio. And so we just were like, it just didn't make sense at the time. I think a lot of companies feel that way too, and that's why maybe they start offering it and then maybe cut back or change
it's
offering. So
dude, it's tough, especially when you're like, you it's just really hard to manage people's expectations when it comes to content creation, because they're thinking like, the big guys, right? Like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Jay Shetty. Yes. They're thinking all these Ryan Padina, all these guys who just
make me an Apple ad, like, and it's like nobody can do Apple but Apple.
Dude,
like, that's exactly.
Yes, that's true. But it's like you have these expectations, and it's really hard to manage them. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, and I just, man, it's just so tough, because a lot of these people, when they, not businesses, and not all of them, but a lot of them, they get into this idea that like, they're going to go viral if they have all these things. And it's like, it's like, no, but you got to remember though, or like they get trapped in this hustle culture. So like one conversation I have with people that kind of gets me in trouble sometimes. Yeah. Because like, first of all, like I'm genuinely like a stoic and a realist.
Yeah.
And like I took master's level statistics classes
for sure.
And you go like this, look, dude, listen, I tell people, listen, it's statistically impossible for all of us to be Elon Musks.
Yes.
You just can't. It's like, it's impossible. No, 100%. Right? So I go like, so that's okay though. So how about we just take our piece of the pie, we make something really cool, we enjoy the process, and then we pick up whoever wants to, we pick up the community as we go. And they're just like, well, what? They're like, that's not very inspiring. I'm like, but it actually is though, because I'm just telling you.
Yes. Well, your story is inspiring for sure. And I think people need to realize that their stories are inspiring, especially to the right people. I think, and a couple of other people you've interviewed, you talked a lot about this, about stories, about storytelling. And I think we've tried really hard to do that in our branding. We're getting better at it, especially with Shane and I's personal brands, and with Scroll as the brand as a whole. We're trying our best to tell the story, especially in their once they kind of come into the fold per se during our sales process and through our client experience. I think they can really see I guess our story through the experience that they have with us.
Yeah. So, well, and again, storytelling, right? Like, so there's a few buzzwords that I don't hate, but they get a lot of but they just like, they're overused and sure. like and misunderstood. So like storytelling, one of them, like I'm a sales guy. So value, that's a big one. That's value. A big buzzword
I'm providing value. It's like, I'm like, really?
I don't know what you mean. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. Like value. Culture is one that I'm kind of coming over the fence with, because that's also just a buzzword, right? Like I want a good culture. I'm like, is that ping pong balls or is that paychecks? I don't know. Right. Like, so anyway, but like storytelling is one of them. And we're like, as a society, we're kind of in this, instant gratification. And it's true. Like I'm not saying, it's not a bad thing that we've come this far, but storytelling takes time, like developing your story, like really getting the message of your story out there. Like, it's taken me like 2.5 years to really, and I'm still learning, but like 2.5 years to really get like a good, okay, this is the story that we're trying to tell. You know what I mean?
No, totally. And it's definitely changed, I think, from, with TikTok and the rise of TikTok and short form video, I think that's really thrown a wrench into into storytelling, into brand, into a lot of different things, and is a major disruptor. But I think there's a guy out there that I've been following. I think his name's JT Barnett. He's on LinkedIn. He's a major TikTok. I would consider him like a TikTok guru. He's been in it since the very beginning, and he runs and helps and advises companies and influencers on how to make TikTok work for them. Anyways, his major takeaways, at least for the last year, have been making storytelling a part of your short form as much as you possibly can, whether it's multiple short form or even just within your 15-second, 60-second clip. And there is storytelling that can be done. It's just very fast paced, especially in this.
Yeah. But see, and listen, he'd probably making way more money than me. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, this is not anything other than my opinion. But like for me, storytelling. So the way that I would tell stories on TikTok would be like over many videos.
Yeah.
So when someone comes in, you kind of capture them within all of the videos that you've made. Because to me, a story is meant to be a story. Like it's long. I don't know. It's longer.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Like it's more intimate. You know what I mean? Like you get emotionally invested in this. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, because I had, I don't know, Cindy Tetro.
Yeah.
Sydney Tetro.
Is that the Disney?
Yeah. So she works. Yeah. She's the CEO of Brandless. She raised the largest round of fundraising led by a female. Like that was actually an interesting conversation. She totally called me out. It was awesome. She was like, "Why not?" Anyway, it was funny. I was like, I told her, I was like, "How did you feel about that?" Because the headline was like female thing, and I was like, "How did you feel about that?" She's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, did you think that like the female should have been in there? Or should it just been like raised ever because it was one of the biggest?" And she's like, "No, I like the female in there because it brought light to the fact that we can do this."
Totally.
And I was like, she called me out, dude. She put me right in my place. I was like, dope. That's sick. I was like, all right, you're right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, back to that storytelling. She's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
She's figured it out. And I think a lot of it comes from that Disney. But again, like
for sure.
Disney can tell short stories and TikToks now because they've been telling long stories for
years. And you look at any successful brand, any brand that's been around for a long time, you look at big tech. Yeah. I mean, all of them tell their story or tell a story. Whether it be through their people, through their content, through their platform, through just the history in general, they're all telling stories, on a very, very regular basis. So
no, dude, it helps. That's cool. So when you talk about white labeling your services and like, having an infinite sales staff and how to like, so are you talking about like companies, I guess in a sense, like white labeling their services or finding services that they can white label? Like, what do you mean?
Well, so white label in the marketing agency world is, there's white labels turn around in a lot of different industries, and direct to consumer and D2C, or in, you're going to maybe white label a product. So maybe a company approaches, a provider, and they're going to white label that product and throw their label on it and sell it as their own, right? When it's really been maybe, bottled, manufactured, invented by another company, they're just kind of throwing their own branding, their own spin on it. So white labeling though, in the marketing world is extremely common. I mean, every agency outsources. That's just the name of the game is you outsource, right? And so what we wanted to do, and when Shane and I started, like I said, it was just me and him and Preston, our sales guy. And so we obviously couldn't fulfill for 50 clients. And so we had to have an outsourced partner that we, shipped off SEO work to, or we shipped off web design work to. We still did a lot of like work ourselves, but you obviously can't do a lot. And, we're approaching kind of a mark that we obviously, in 2020, we were like, we've got to bring an in-house staff. We've got to kind of let go of these white label partners. We had had a lot of issues with white label because you kind of are handing over the experience, right? You're handing over the deliverable, the final product, the experience. Yeah. And so we were like, we've got to bring it all in-house. We've got to just fork over the money, fork over the salaries. Let's figure it out. Let's bring it in-house. And so we did that. And what that did was, over that next year, it showed us that we could be a white label partner for other agencies. And then we got into 2020, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and we were like, we can offer our same offerings at a lower price point at basically a wholesale rate to any other agency that wants to use us. Because one, we know all the pain points because we know what sucked working with all these other white label partners. We know what sucks about working with an agency. So we know all the pain points, and we know the pain points of the agency, and we know the pain points of the clients because we've been doing it for a couple of years. So we're like, let's get into white label. Like, we can totally do it. And it ended up being a huge blessing because we brought on several very big like consulting firms, a couple other agencies that brought us literal like several hundred clients within a matter of months. And
I like that.
So it just basically, that's what really helped us expand very quickly. And will continue to be the way that we expand to in the future. And it's a big part of our business. I would say about 50% of our clients that we have are white label, and the other 50% of our clients are just kind of what we internally call our kind of like B2C, but they're not really, they're B2B. But us, Scroll, working with other businesses, because most of the other white label people have no idea that Scroll exists. They only know about the agency that they're talking to and working with. Because we'll hop on the phone, we'll hop on video conference on our white label emails. I won't have this t-shirt on or whatever. I'm not usually hopping on calls, but any one of our staff are, and and we'll act like a part of their team. And that's extremely common in the agency world. And that's kind of taboo. Like, I feel like I'm probably gonna get some hits after this for that.
No way. But like, it doesn't matter because again, it kind of goes back to this 4-day work week thing. It's like, dude, the job got done.
Exactly.
And the experience was great and the check didn't bounce, homie. So
so it's all good, So
it's all good.
That's what I kind of meant when I told you about kind of like, I would say infinite scaling, because you're basically finding really strategic referral partners is what it comes down to, and they're doing the selling for you. So it's not like you have to sell; you just have to deliver a really good product. And if you deliver a really good product, people will stay. So.
And you know what's funny is like, it's kind of, the sales world is kind of shifting. Okay, so let me say the first thing. Like, I am a sales guy, and I am and prospecting is life. All right, you got to do that.
You got to keep the blood. You got to keep the blood pumping.
Yeah, that's right.
Prospecting is the blood pumping.
Yep, but it's kind of shifting. Like, the bigger deals that you get are always from partnerships,
always
referral partners,
always
strategic part. Like, I had Lindsay Ivy. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yes, Lindsay. Oh yeah, I follow Lindsay. She probably doesn't know who I am. I know she knows Shane, but I love following her and her husband both. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're great. So I had Lindsay on to talk about some strategic partnership stuff, and she dropped some knowledge. But it was just crazy how
big time.
You kind of see it. Just in this case, when I interviewed her, it's like partnerships really are a big deal. I think you should put just as much time in. And I think what's worth it too for some companies is to have a sales arm. And then part of that sales arm is a partnership arm in that sales team where you focus on like finding, retaining
relationships,
relationship partners that like feed off of you. I think what a lot of people kind of get scared of that is because a lot of the great partnerships come from competition.
Big time.
What you think is competition, right? You know what I'm saying?
No, totally. And we have I won't mention their name, but we work with a really big, what would have been a competitive company to us, at least on the national level, in the home service space, on the home service space out of Oklahoma. And they're our biggest partner. Hundreds of clients. And so I think, in terms of, and we have a very solid relationship with all of our partners. We're very, at least on the white label side, we're extremely transparent on the project management side of things, on the communication side of things. And that's why they've stuck around for so long. Why they'll continue to do so is because we're still small enough that we're able to be pretty nimble and kind of bend a little bit to specific needs, especially at that scale when we're dealing with, 50 plus clients. It's like, hey,
right.
we can kind of bend and move a little bit to accommodate certain things. But yeah, anyways, strategic partnerships are vital, I think, in any industry and any growth. I mean, especially in the home service business where, they could have referral partners, if they don't really, if you've got a one-man shop and you've got another guy who's taking all the leads, and can't fulfill, but the leads are just going to waste, he could pass those on to somebody else and take a cut or whatever. There's just every industry could benefit from strategic partnerships.
I think you should focus on it. I think it should be like another arm. Like, we need salespeople. We need these guys. Totally. I think, I think that's great. And so when you use like white label, but I think white labeling too is, again, it's just like a lot of people. I don't know why a lot of people kind of look down on that, because I do the kind of the same thing. Like when I was a virtual assistant, so I did virtual assisting for a long time. Like me and my wife did that together. That was like our thing.
That's awesome.
And a lot of it was like, can you do this? And I was like,
but
it's a grind. But I was like, a lot of it was like, can you do this? And I was like, no, but I know someone who'll do it for me. For sure. And I can pay them, and I can, you know what I mean? And it'll get done.
And you can take the cut. And it'll get done. Yeah, totally. And it's just, I think a lot of people don't realize that's what happens in the marketing world. I think especially like maybe small businesses don't realize that's what's going on. When you do work with an agency, if they're a small shop and you're always talking to one person, my guess is they're probably outsourcing and there's nothing wrong with that because the work's getting done. I agree. I think when you're just not transparent about it is when you get into some problems.
So that's a good point. When I was a virtual assistant, I would tell people that. I'd be like, hey, so I just want to let you know that I know how to get this done. I would tell people that I know how to get this done.
For sure.
But I'm going to be upfront with you. I'm going to send this off to my team. But I'm going to double check it before it gets to you to make sure that it's what you wanted. But if it does, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to send it to my team. And everybody was cool with that.
Yeah.
Like if you just laid it out, like if you're just upfront with people.
No, totally. But it's been a huge help for our business. It was a huge help when we got started. It's now kind of flipped the coin, and now we're offering white label, and we do primarily, I would say like 90% of everything that we offer in-house with our staff. Nice. And so it's been nice to kind of go that route now and kind of come full circle.
Yeah. And is that how is white labeling kind of the key to scaling up your service business, is just like trying to figure out how to like white label it, how to like get, how to like find partnerships, how to leverage other people's talents? Totally.
I mean, leveraging people's talent is for sure a way to scale processes and internal. I'm the COO, so I'm a very process driven guy. I'm a very detail oriented guy. OCD, I've never been diagnosed with it, but it runs in my family, and I'm sure I have at least a little bit of it. And so I like just being able to have that in place lets you scale. Basically, if you get if your back end is set up in order to, let you scale, then you can. And that's the whole idea. I think a lot of companies jump into this. Let's hire a 400 person sales staff. Let's hit full kit and caboodle. And then guess what's happening right now? They're laying off half their sales staff. There's all this stuff that's going on, and they, either weren't prepared or didn't do the back end work that was needed because they have pressure from the VCs and they have pressure from the funding to make it happen. So, so anyways, having that back end and the process is important. And I think strategic partnerships are incredibly important. I think if you look at some of the biggest, most successful like agencies out there have grown through strategic partnerships.
I feel like you have to, Yeah. That's really cool, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, Dan. You've been more than generous with your time. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of Scroll if they want to start white labeling, how they get a hold of you and how they make this work, man.
Yeah, if you're a small business or if you're an agency looking to scale up, hit us up at joinscroll.com, joinscroll.com. You can hit us up on LinkedIn as well. You can follow myself. You just search for either Dan Page or Daniel Page. You can search for Shane Hickenlooper too, and you'll be able to find us on LinkedIn. And that's the best way to get a hold of us. So
perfect. Yeah. And all those links will be in the description, man. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Stalin. Appreciate it.